Gilwoo, it's great to finally have you on the podcast. You are really doing God's work by giving us in NYC the best and the juiciest strawberries, and I am excited to dive in.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Gilwoo, you have had an interesting career. You were a technical director at DreamWorks Animation, and you've been an investment analyst as well. So, how and when did you decide to launch Zordi?
Yeah, so both the being a technical director and the investment analyst were actually soon after my undergrad. And I basically were as an undergrad or generally in terms of my career passion, I was interested in something that where I could bring impact a lot of people and bring a big value to the society. The first thing that I was interested in was generally media, like a filming industry or movie industry. So that got me into DreamWorks, and I was part of the Kung Fu Panda 2 team. And then the investment analysis job was also in the media industry. And then the other passion, like under the same category of what is the type of things that I can do to make a bigger impact to the world, was in robotics and AI. And after exploring the media industry for a few years, I decided to come back to my engineering kind of a background and pick that up. So I started my master's and PhD after those 3 to 4 years of exploring other things. And I genuinely just enjoyed doing AI and robotics. And by the time I was finishing up my PhD, I started exploring ideas of, okay, where can I take this technical expertise to bring a bigger impact? And that, with my interest and passion in climate change, kind of led to agriculture. And that's why I started Zordi.
And were you already thinking or learning more about climate change while you were at your jobs, or what did that look like?
No, not necessarily. It was just something that I've been very interested or worried since I was young. I think in undergrad, there was always a small cultural kind of shock or things that I was noticing, that how Korea is doing different from the US, how US was doing different from Japan, and how those may have bigger impact to the world. And think the accelerating pace of climate change was also just generally concerning. So it was certainly not something that I could tie into my academia or career until I found a way to do that, which was Zordi.
Interesting. So, what does Zordi really do?
Yeah, so we are building a autonomous greenhouse solution with AI and robotics. And what that really means is that our goal is to enable high quality, sustainably grown fresh produce available to everybody, and especially kind of starting with metropolitan areas. And by that, what I mean is bring these greenhouses closer to the market, and by doing so, we can really significantly reduce the food waste and the supply chain, the global greenhouse gas coming out of the long distance supply chain. And then really by doing smart farming, precision agriculture on top of that in greenhouses, you can also be very efficient about water usage, typically, or chemical usage. You typically end up reducing about 70 to 90% of all of those. So overall, you are able to reduce the impact, global kind of sustainable greenhouse carbon footprint of the fresh produce by being local to these places. Now, to do that, you really need a scalable, climate resilient solution that can be automated everywhere, and that's really where our technology and the vertically integrated solution comes in.
Right. And so I feel like the agriculture industry has gone through several transitions in terms of technology scale over the past few decades. And you just mentioned two terms, precision agriculture and smart farming. So can you tell us, for the audience who doesn't know a lot about these concepts, what do they really mean? And what role does AI have in all of this?
Yeah, I think both of them are very high level terms, and I'm certainly not the person who defines these. I'm just giving my own perspective. Precision agriculture is really knowing exactly what the plants need
Mm.
and providing just that, and really by being able to have directly affect these plants, being able to do that very resource efficiently at the right time. So that could be done in the field, that could be done in greenhouses, that could be done in vertical farms. Typically, to do that, it could be like even in like weeding, there are tools or robotic machines now coming out that are doing, see and spray or like burn specifically the weed without having to use chemicals.
Mm.
If you're able, and that's actually where the AI comes in, AI and robotics come in, it really enables understanding exactly where things need treatment and then applying it with like the right tools, and what the rightness really depends on what you're looking for, and what is a cost efficient and sustainable way to do it. Now, I think smart farming is a broader concept, and precision ag is only like a big part of it.
Hmm.
So overall, smart farming typically means that you are automating, whether it's irrigation or some version of spraying or harvesting or climate control, whatever that in your in that particular type of production, what can be done in a more autonomous way, like trying to change the farming that way, is what I consider as like smart farming. It is certainly a lot, I think, easier to do if you start with a more controlled environment. So that's why I think smart farming, that terminology, is often connected with the concept of greenhouses or vertical farms, where you are in a semi-controlled environment where a lot of things like irrigation, like watering or changing nutrients or changing the climate condition, all of those are already connected to controllers that can control those. I do think that's broadly speaking, it's just a high level way of changing farms to be a lot more autonomous and efficient, and precision ag happens to be just one big portion of enabling smart farming.
Interesting. And where does the farmer belong in this entire process?
So farmers typically have to be, I think, very good in so many different things, right? One is they have to be, farming experts, like an agronomist, who really know how to grow these plants well in this particular climate conditions. And they also have to be very good operator, manager, leading or training the crews, and really going through the crop season, making the right decisions at the right time.
Hmm.
It ends up being very requiring decades of learning. A farmer who's been doing the same crops over past like 30 years is so much better in that region than, say, first time entry level farmer. Our goal with our solution, and I think this is true for many of the smart farming kind of solution providers potentially, is to really reduce the entry bar and also reduce the risk of running the farms, and also making the decision making
Hmm.
and the labor management much easier and less laborious by using precision like scouting tools or AI to flag the problems much earlier, or even actually
Right.
supporting making strong recommendations, early recommendations on what to do at the farm, particular area of the farm, or taking it even further, automating some of those, like a autopilot version, like letting certain sections, certain part of the farm operation run on its own, or in the lastly, like kind of reducing the manual labor significantly with robots or any other kind of autonomous control systems that we can come up with. So the goal is to really make farms easier to operate without having to have decades of knowledge, and do so with minimal labor.
Interesting. And do the farmers in the US particularly know that the kind of skills that they would require going forward are kind of changing? Because I think they should be well versed with, how to gather data, how to analyze data, and make use of the data. So are they aware? Where are we right now?
Yeah, I think very much so. Most of the, most of the US like farms in general, they're certainly in terms of total number of farmers, like a lot of farmers are small businesses, but really in terms of total agriculture kind of output, it's largely run by much like really big family farms or and both of those I think are becoming very aware of the new technologies. And even though we are not in the kind of field agricultural space yet, I do have a deep respect for them as well. And they are always very eager to actually try new technology, learn and adopt to like new AI systems, and actually sometimes even, closely collaborating with these technology provider or startups to code, to develop, to provide the inputs to guide them what needs to be built.
Very cool. In fact, even in India, we are realizing that. So initially, when technology was new, and this I'm talking, say 5 or 6 years ago, farmers were not actually even well versed with using a smartphone. And now they are gradually becoming more open. One of the more progressive states, called Karnataka, is where farmers are opening up to new technologies beyond smartphones as well. And I think COVID, in some sense, has accelerated or the use of phones in general. So I think that has definitely helped and changing the consumer psychology, so
Mm-hmm.
farmer psychology. So yeah, it's great to see that farmers everywhere are changing. Would love to sort of get to the execution, because I believe agriculture is one of the more difficult ones to get off the ground. So Zordi is currently producing strawberries, and it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but based on my research, I found out that indoor farming is particularly associated more with leafy vegetables like spinach, lettuce, etc. So, why did you select strawberries, and how do you decide which crop to grow? Is it based on customer demand or ease of production? What does that look like?
Yeah, so typically greenhouses and indoor farms can grow a large number of different crops, generally specialty crops and leafy greens. Leafy greens, and by specialty, I mean like strawberries, tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, and sometimes even like grapes. There are different types of greenhouses than protective farming that are able to grow these crops. Now, in the US, most of the greenhouses that we see that are commercially operating are these leafy greenhouses. And the main reason is they are the most well industrialized in terms of the solution that's available. And also, the market is reasonably big. There is a big demand of leafy greens. Um, Lastly, it's easier to grow in the sense that leafy greens, you can grow and sell within less than 4 weeks in greenhouses. While when it comes to like strawberries or tomatoes, cucumbers, it's typically more of a year-long crop, or like 9 to 12 months, depending on how you're growing it. So it makes sense in that, at least that's the first phase of the greenhouses coming in the US, like leafy greens was the first one to emerge. Now, for us to really do the same thing outside of leafy greens, it has to come with significant amount of automation that involves robotics and AI, in the sense that when it comes to fruiting crops like strawberries and tomatoes, often it comes with manual labor that has to handle these fruits, and also comes with much higher nuanced level of horticultural expertise to manage the potential kind of pest issues, disease issues, or nutrition issues over the course of 10 months instead of like 4 weeks.
Sure. Yeah.
So in fact, coming in, for me, it was more exciting opportunity to tackle these fruiting crops because of the challenges that are associated with it, and the market, which is bigger
Yeah.
than leafy greens if you can start tackling these. And I knew that with my technology and expertise in robotics and AI, especially specializing in terms of robots, navigation and manipulation, this is where we could have a technical moat compared to other companies to begin with.
You talked about robotics navigation, right? Or robots navigation. What are the different processes involved in Zordi while it grows strawberries, and what percentage or what processes are taken care of by robots?
Yeah, so for us, there are actually two types of robots and then a really connecting AI in between. So
Right.
we start with scouting robots that are providing really dense um, overview and data collection across the greenhouse and really understanding, providing immense spatial and temporal data around how the plants are doing, whether there are any pest issues, how the plants are growing, are they tracking, and then there's AI that's taking those data and then analyzing it and outputting what needs to be done at the farm beyond just optimizing the climate conditions, but actually taking it to the level that would typically require on-site experts to make day-to-day decisions, to the degree that, oh, you're going to, now their fruits, flowers are emerging, you need to go like thin the fruits to get to the right size, or oh, the early pest issues happening here, this is what you need to do. Really kind of things that I, as a non-expert, can't like know what to do. That's kind of what our AI is taking care of, and
Right.
and thereby reducing the entry level kind of knowledge and know-how that's required to run the farm successfully. Now, there's a third piece of harvesting robot where it's handling the manual labor of harvesting, grading, and packing, which typically ends up being about 40 to 60% of manual labor happening in these farms. And that one reduces the labor across the handling of the fruits. And both of these are autonomously running in these greenhouses. There's a lot in terms of the core technology. It's a lot less about navigation, but I would say the dexterity or the manipulation of the plants, and then the AI that's analyzing the data and then making decisions for the farm.
And can robots pluck right now?
Our robots are not doing any plucking. However, there are mechanical machines that are able to do those things. The reason why we are not doing it is mainly because it's less important part of strawberry or green tomato or fruiting crop production. It doesn't happen as frequently to demand the robot's level of automation.
Yeah, because you suggested 10 months. So,
Right.
right. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then, it's just very interesting because I've never, worked with an agri deep tech company, but would love to know how do you sort of, or rather, what are the key teams that execute all of this?
Yeah, so I have been very fortunate to be joined by my co-founder, Casey Call, who was the vertical head grower at Plenty before joining me. He is actually a sixth generation farmer. His family runs a really big 15,000 acres of farm in Western New York. Now, a big portion of what we do is really collaborating to where the automation needs to happen and prototyping and iterating what it takes to automate someone like Casey, like the farmer's brain into like AI and robotics. And then the other piece is really the building the technology. So the other person that I'm really, really grateful to have is Ryan Knopf. He had his own harvesting robot company before joining us, and we are now developing the entire stack together. So typically, coming back to your question, it's really a tight collaboration between the grow/production team and the robotics AI team, and I'm really trying to continue to coordinate that and get to the make a progress towards our bigger vision.
Interesting. Now, I think one thing that we spoke about earlier as well is just the scale and the capital requirements, for a company like Zordi. Um, do you like when you go to investors or when you tell your friends about Zordi, do they think it's an AI company or they think it's a real estate company or agricultural company? What do they say?
Yeah, so we are definitely more of ag tech company with a core strength in AI and robotics.
Mm,
I think there are other companies in this field, obviously, that can fall under the category of real estate, or maybe agri-tech more around the environmental control, for example.
right.
We definitely, our main strength is, as an organization, is coming up with a vertically integrated solution in greenhouse with key differentiating technologies in AI and robotics.
And you said vertically integrated, and I also know that, you have your strawberries placed at supermarkets in New York. Why did you go down that path? Because there are several other companies as well, and I'm trying to get a sense of how the market is moving and what are the levers that one should take into account while deciding to go full stack versus restricting themselves to specific functions.
Right. I think both of them are definitely valid, and I'm sure we'll see successful companies in both directions, just like how you see both of them being successful in, say, the computer industry, right? Um, Now, the reason why it was important for us to do the vertically integrated approach was I do think that ultimately, whether we choose to scale up with our own brand and continue to own and operate all of our greenhouses, which would certainly be very demanding and capex heavy, but very exciting journey as a company growing. Whether we do that or we partner with bigger partners and start exploring more capital light, faster way to expand, which as of today we're certainly currently learning a lot. Um, Now, what doesn't change is that ultimately the unit economics of the farms, whether those are ours or our partners, need to be very strong. And
Right.
there's much bigger, faster way to innovate if you can really think about it from the retail strategy, kind of site development strategy, and the way how you would design and automate and operate. So, for example, just to give you an idea, the biggest kind of benefit of being local to the metropolitan areas is that, and then being able to maintain a high quality yield, high yield greenhouses throughout the year is that you get to sell directly to your retail partners like Whole Foods or Walmart. And by doing so and by being local, you end up taking a lot more, the farms make a lot more dollar per pound, well, receive the higher dollar per pound, even at the same consumer price, mainly because of that shorter supply chain. And the consumers enjoy fresher food and less significantly reduced food waste. So that strategy is the beginning foundation of what enables these farms to be successful. And on top of that, we're adding our solution in robotics AI to make that scalable with lower OpEx, lower technical risks, and do that everywhere that we want. So
Right.
in order to demonstrate this, I think it was critical that we do a vertically integrated approach and innovate every piece of the category, what makes this economically profitable.
And so would that also mean that you will be able to sell more in metropolitan cities versus, say smaller towns or?
Um, Not necessarily, but we will be working. Typically, our strategy is to work closely with the bigger retail partners like Whole Foods to get to the local
Right,
distribution centers that they own, which means that once we're able to supply them the same day, they reach the consumers or their stores around that local distribution center, including smaller towns,
right,
within the same day or the next day.
right. Interesting. I'm actually curious as to how you've designed your sales team uh, at Zordi, and what were the key skills that you were looking for?
So we actually don't currently have a dedicated sales team. We definitely had very talented and brave key leaders in the org who, including myself, but mainly, in securing differentiating products and being able to come up with package design with a few iterations and actually presenting them to smaller premium stores and really iterating with their feedback.
Right.
So we haven't really been doing much of our own marketing. However, thanks to our partners, retail partners, really the grocery stores, we've been doing very well in those stores, often kind of achieving higher sales velocity than other products in the same category.
So if I'm a consumer and if I go to a Whole Foods, how do I identify that I have to buy Zordi? Do I know as a consumer, like does a large majority of US consumers know that what is the benefit of autonomous greenhouse, or why should I take Zordi versus others?
Um, yeah, I think generally the consumers are less familiar with the concept of greenhouses. Now, recently, I think thanks to more leafy green greenhouses emerging, consumers just seeing more and more of them, and I think that's just kind of naturally educating them. But to be fully kind of transparent, I think people don't necessarily know or kind of think about the difference between greenhouses versus say organic farms, so they're generally in the similar premium category. I think they don't necessarily have to know that whether the fruits are produced or picked by robots or not. That's certainly an important and exciting part of what we do, and it certainly helps a lot in terms of food safety, cleanliness and operational kind of perfection. However, I think it would be beneficial to everyone if more people can understand the value of local greenhouses when it comes to these fresh produce that are highly perishable. What that means, like how much local greenhouses at scale can reduce the global greenhouse gas.
Interesting. Now, I think the last time we spoke, you talked about how you've been raised, right? And you've been very, I mean, at least to me, you sounded very confident and very comfortable in your skin. So how did your family, your friends around you shaped you as to who you are today?
Yeah, I think so overall, I think I grew up in a very fortunate environment, like sort of like, different part of my life where being a talented female engineer was never like the was a natural thing. Just to give you an idea, my mother was an elementary school teacher, and then she really just loved math. I think math was actually what she studied in her college, and eventually she started her own company, like a private school for gifted students in math. So I grew up kind of being naturally exposed to engaging more with talented female engineers who taught me math as their kind of when they were college students. And I also, I did pretty well in math, computer science, and generally engineering stuff or science stuff as middle school, high school kid. And then I came to MIT, and then I was fortunate to actually have my advisor, Professor Leslie Kalbling, was also a very well-renowned female professor leading machine learning. And I never actually thought of those things that much. And then even in my PhD, my advisor, Sis Srinivasa, had mostly, I think, had like a really good proportion of female students and male students. Like I never really thought of that until somebody pointed out these things to me, and like, oh yeah, I never actually had to even like feel awkward about being this like female, like a leading engineer or a female entrepreneur, because thanks to the way how I grew up, and thanks to kind of really reinforcing culture that I've had around me.
Very interesting. And did your mom teach you math every now and then? Was she concerned that, since I'm good at math, she should also be good at math?
I think she definitely taught me math since pretty early on. And then eventually, I think by the time I was like third grade, she started to feel like, oh, Gilwoo might probably benefit from having more dedicated, like college, like student, teacher who can teach more advanced math. I
Right.
don't think she ever doubted about that. Was, I think, the other big part of it. I don't think she ever doubted about my talent, and I grew up kind of really believing that I'm gifted in certain things, and have the ability to learn things quickly. And I
Yeah.
think that's largely coming from my mom's kind of having a firm belief in my talent.
Yeah. I think something similar happened to me with chemistry. So my mom was really good at chemistry, and she used to teach me chemistry, but she was very particular about me scoring well in chemistry. She wouldn't
I
talk
see.
about other subjects, but she was like, since you are a daughter of someone who's good at chemistry, you should really score well.
Oh,
So
I see, I see. No, I don't think my mom ever put it that way. She did
yeah,
really like a lot when I had high scores, but
yeah,
she kept just praising me for that, and it was
yeah.
a pretty good positive, like a reinforcement.
Yeah, yeah. Some rapid fire questions. And I do know that you are a big fan of science, math, and of course, Zordi. But what do you do outside of science, math, and Zordi?
Typically, I think, honestly, I think 95% of my time is just running Zordi successfully, and the other 5% is kind of trying to maintain the energy and health to keep pushing this journey. So I really try to just take care of myself, to sleep well, rest well, do some exercise. I really like swimming. Ever since I moved to southern New Jersey last year, I kind of lost track of just getting to the routine of going to nearby like a pool. So I'm trying to
Yeah,
pick it up, but I do have a really small workout setup in my house. So I try to do that, and certainly also trying to reread occasionally the books that I like about how to build good companies, or what are the other kind of visionaries historically, how did they build their own companies. There are certainly things that are just worth kind of reminding myself what it takes to build a bigger, greater company.
yeah, yeah. What is the one book that you're reading right now?
Actually, I think, let's see, it's in Korean, but it's a book about book that a Korean billionaire wrote. Her name's Kelly Choi, and she started her own sushi roll business in the UK, in Europe, and she franchised it and made it really big in Europe. And I think and she actually had a really big failure before kind of starting this up. So to the degree that, she had big debt, and she typically, people wouldn't have made it all the way back and become super successful. So um I think it's, if you translate it, I think it's like a woman who sells roles in Paris or something like that. I don't
Oh,
know what
wow.
it is in English, but I don't think she has published it in English yet. But
English.
that's the book that I really enjoy reading, in terms of just how she kind of built the whole thing, starting from coming out of a failed company.
What kept her moving?
I think just actually, so I have a deep respect for her, and I'd love to meet her someday. I think even with her failed company, she had the grit and operational mindset and all the skills that was needed to start a company and build it to certain scale. But I think through that failure, I think coming out of that, she became a lot more mentally prepared to continue to push herself and energize herself, and start the day very positively, start the day with a lot of gratitude, and really engage well with partners. And I think that sincerity, not that I don't think she didn't, she definitely had that even before that, but I think that initial kind of experience had made her in such a strong mentality position to get to where she is right now.
Yeah. I feel like if you, since you also read books from these exceptional people, I don't know if you feel similarly, but at least when I read them or when I talk to people like you, I believe that whatever is going on in your entrepreneurial journey is just very normal. So many others have also gone through that stage, and they've sort of kept their mindset in a way that has helped them to achieve the great things that they have. Which is not to say that the journey is not hard, but you really have to be zen in some sense and accept that this is the way of living.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
um who would you like to recommend for women who build and why?
Um, yeah, I know. I think Kelly Troy, if you can, would be amazing. I'd be happy to try to. I don't know. I actually don't have personal connection, but might be able to find a way. The person that came to my mind is actually Kanu Gulati at Coastal Ventures. She's on my board, the board of Zordi, and I think part of Women Who Build is really just the whole ecosystem of how to build a startup, how to support a startup, how to invest in the right startups. And I think she comes with a lot of technical kind of expertise as well as the really supportive advice and really keen advice in guiding the companies into the right ways. And for us, we've been immensely helped by her support and advice. And I'm sure, her journey is also very interesting as far as I can tell. I think it'll be exciting to have her be on the podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great recommendation, and I will definitely take you up for that. But thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you, and I'm gonna try Zordi strawberries soon. So where can I get them in New York?
Yeah, so in Manhattan, I think there are three H Marts that are in Manhattan that receives our berries, and
Yeah.
then there's a new store in near NYU, Wegmans store that opened up last year that where we deliver our berries once or twice a week these days. Certainly trying to add more as our volume comes up.
Thank you. I'll definitely try them and let you know how I
Oh
pick
yeah,
them.
sorry. And the one last store actually, I shouldn't forget, is Butterfield. Butterfield is in the Upper East Side, and they have actually I've been very grateful to work with them. They've been our very first customer, and we've been working with them for now 30 years.
Oh wow. Awesome.
Alrighty.